Hello gamers, my name is Duma and welcome to the Game Room. I've got a great one for you today. This is the build I've been streaming on Twitch here recently, fine-tuning the setup. This is a monster 1-bar PvP Magicka Arcanist that absolutely shreds BGs and will help elevate your entire team, affecting both your and the enemy team's momentum, with great map pressure with long-lasting dots and the ability to snap and burn down single targets, all while being very strong defensively. It also uses crafted and overland gear, so it's very easy and quick to put together. Bow builds aside, this is among the strongest I have felt with a 1-bar setup in PvP. It's genuinely a very good, well-rounded setup, stretching the Arcanist class really far within the confines of 1-bar. The TLDR of how it works is you dot everything around you that you can touch with one button, then burn down single targets with strong sustain damage with another button. That's it. Very straightforward offensively, and anyone can learn it. Defensively, there's a good bit of finesse to it, which we will cover here in just a moment. I do feel this has the potential to be extended to a full 2-bar setup for overland PvP, which I'll be working on the next few streams if you want to come check that out as well. I also have some gameplay for you at the end of the video of my playtesting so you can see it in action. I'm going to move through this a little quick, but the written guide is also up and available for you now over at the GAMEROOM.tv. Let's go. For this build, I'm an Imperial just because that is what I already was. We are losing a tiny bit of stats due to it, but the Imperial cost reduction really does take the edge off of things, so it ended up working out great. I think there are lots of options for race here, and even though we are a Magicka-based build, if you're already a stamina-based race, I do think you are probably going to be okay, because having a bit of extra stamina pool is useful due to the aggressive dodge roll nature we're playing. You can genuinely gain benefit here from just about any of the meta races. I wouldn't worry about changing race here at all yet. High Alpha is probably going to be best here with the most raw damage along with a solid sustain component, but again, a lot works here. I wouldn't sweat it much. You want to put enough points into health to have about 30k HP in BGs. A little over 30k is better than a little under 30k, so adjust accordingly for your race and put the rest into Magicka. With this exact setup, it runs at 30.6k HP in BGs without a warden in the group. We'll be using the Atronach Mundus, and for consumables, bear haunch food with tripods. Real quick before gear, I want to make sure you're aware of the passive here of Psychic Lesion, which increases the damage of our status effects by 15% and status effect chance by 55%. Tuck that away for now. All right, our first set is going to be the crafted set of Serpent Sustain. We're mainly after the 5 set here, which extends the duration of status effects by 16 seconds. If we pop over to the status effect guide from the GameRoom.tv, we can see there are 3 dot status effects of burning, hemorrhaging, and poison. We'll be mainly focused on burning and poison, which you can see has a duration of 4 seconds on procs, meaning Serpent's Disdain makes these about 20 seconds in duration each for every target they touch, with poison having a scaling execute component as well. You're going to be proccing these constantly on everything around you all of the time, and it's going to equate to a lot of pressure and resource drain from the enemy team over time. The damage is awesome, but there's a little bit more to it than just damage. You're forcing most of the enemy team to drain resources to deal with your damage, affecting their momentum. When one player can do this alone at this scale and as quickly as we can do it with this setup, it brings a lot of weight to the BG. If we take a look at an in-game screenshot here, you can see we had the most damage in the BG, and if you remove the second place person, third and below is 50% less damage, and it just goes down from there. Ultimately able to participate in 45 team kills, of which no one on either team was even close to that, all while having among the least deaths in the BG. These type of builds bring a ton of weight and momentum to a battleground. For those that were watching the streams, they saw that this type of performance wasn't just a one-game highlight reel, but something like 8 to 9 out of 10 games had this type of presence. It's very strong, all with 1-bar. I have a slightly alternate setup for you as well, bringing hemorrhaging to the table that we'll go over shortly. Our next set is the Overland set of War Maiden, which juices our main kill pressure on targets, which is mostly magic damage. War Maiden gives us a huge 729 weapon and spell damage, significantly increasing our magic damage. For the full setup, you want Serpent Sustain in these spots on the body with a heavy chest and the rest medium. Then we plug in War Maiden around that in the belt, jewelry, and weapon spots, with Oaken Soul and topping it off with a monster set of your choice with a line of weapon and spell damage. We are running all well fitted, which is quite important with the exception of the reinforced on the chest. To make 1-bar builds work at a very high level in PvP, you very often need double damage sets in order to have enough damage to actually kill proficient people due to the loss of back bar and second weapon. We band-aid this defensively by aggressively taking advantage of dodge rolls in our play, which is why well fitted is so important. We're going to try enchant all of our armor, all infused traits on jewelry. For jewelry enchants, you can play with this a little for sustain between magical harm and physical harm enchants. Use physical harm if you're struggling with stam sustain, and magical harm if you're struggling with magic sustain. I personally settled in a sweet spot of 2 magical harm and 1 physical harm. Then you want want a sharpened lightning staff with the poison weapon enchant. You can run double dot poisons as well as you prefer, but you need a source of poison here. Reason being is this spot has among the highest chance to proc status effects, which is important because we want as many as possible out all of the time, which you get from light weaving your abilities proccing this enchant. If we take a look at about 30 seconds of parsing on a 3 mil dummy, you can start to put in context of how all this is working. About 60% of our damage is guaranteed on use since it's not RNG proc based, and this is your main kill pressure to burn down enemies. This is being juiced by War Maiden. Our two main status effects are less relevant on the single target kill pressure. It's more supplemental, but this is your main map pressure as these damage sources will be out all over the place on lots of players. This is being juiced by Serpent's Disdain. And finally, a little over 90% of our total damage on targets we are focusing to kill is direct damage, which is being juiced by the Lightning Staff due to the Ancient Knowledge passive, increasing this damage by 12%. If you're moving a little bit slower and maybe not able to snap and burn down targets very quickly, you may benefit here from an Inferno Staff, which will increase your map pressure due to the Inferno Staff increasing your status effects by 12%. However, as you can see here, that will definitely lower your kill pressure on individual targets. Next is abilities. I've thrown all relevant abilities against the wall over many hours of playtesting, and this is what I feel is the best in slot setup across the board, both from a number standpoint and just from feel while playing. We have two offensive buttons. The first is Elemental Susceptibility, or LESUS for short. This is our main status effect generator. This costs nothing and applies Major Breach to targets you apply it to. It also immediately applies Burning, which is extended to 20 seconds per target due to Serpent's Disdain. You want to constantly be spreading this everywhere while light weaving it to get burning and poison rolling on enemy players around the map. Every free global you have, you should be spent putting this up somewhere. If someone doesn't have numbers ticking above their head and you aren't training down a specific target, hit them with LESUS. Next is our main spammable Rune Blades, which deals 3 sources of magic damage per global, increased by 3% for each crux we have. We don't spend any crux offensively with this build. We sit on it to juice this spammable by 9% with 3 crux, which between that, a Lightning Staff, and War Maiden, these things are absolutely trucking players in BGs. This morph also does splash AoE damage on the final hit, which is just perfect for the congested nature of BGs, helping chew up groups a bit. Next, we have a passive set it and forget it ability of Recuperative Treatise, which helps with sustain and adds extra damage as you focus into players with Rune Blades. A fun alternative here for those wanting to focus a little more on map pressure, and also is where an Inferno Staff can potentially really shine for you, is bringing in the scribing skill Bloody Soul set up in this way, which does bleed damage and bleed damage over time, which will proc a 3rd dot status effect of Hemorrhage while also applying another dot itself. Last, we use the Major Vitality script for 12% more healing and shield strength. So you'll use LESUS and Soul on each target. So LESUS Soul, swap, LESUS Soul, swap, LESUS Soul, swap, and spread this out as much as you can. I personally didn't vibe with this version very much, but it's still totally viable and may accommodate those who may want to focus a little bit more on spreading even more dot map pressure. But you can't just do that. You need to focus in on players with Rune Blades as well, or you're just playing a hamstring version of the build. It's just another option for you here if you want to experiment a bit yourself. But do understand, please, it is a little bit weaker version of the setup. For our defensive abilities, first we have the centerpiece of Healing Contingency. I've talked about this about 20,000 times now, and the regulars are for sure tired of hearing about this at this point. So I made this supplemental video specifically for this skill for these type of builds. I'll link for you here and also in the video description. Please watch it if you're unfamiliar with the ability. I promise you there is more to it than surface value by just reading the tooltips, and the video will help you. It's unquestionably one of the strongest universal abilities in the game in the context of these type of builds. The actual scripts you want for it are Healing, Sage's Remedy, and Resolve. If you don't have Scribing, Green Vigor would go here to still get both a heal and minor resolve. Although this does change the flow of sustained because you're swapping a Magicka cost ability for stamina, so adjust accordingly. We're going to use this ability in several ways. This applies a burst heal and heal over time to you and players around you, so you can help heal up your teammates on the fly of your own combat. I've had highlight reel games on stream with some 1 bar DPS builds where this ended up doing almost 1,000,000 team healing with one button, mostly in the stride of doing my own thing. It can be crazy over time. Try to make sure you have this prepped beforehand when spreading LESUS around. Since LESUS doesn't have a cost, it doesn't activate the ability. So you can have one in the pocket waiting, and when you get pressed, dodge roll weave it like shown in the supplemental video for a double use of the ability in the same global. Double burst healing you and your teammates. We're actually going to dodge roll weave this most of the time in its use, combining the burst heal and the dodge roll iframe together. So make sure to pay attention to that section of the other video. Next is Spite Ward of the Lucid Mind. This gives you a damage shield and burst heal with a 30% cost reduction per crux. This is our only crux spender, so so it will be used with 3 Crux most of the time, mitigating almost all of the cost, which is necessary for the sustained flow of the build. If you take a quick look at this outside of Battle Spirit with the crit, that's 22.4k in healing and 11.3k in shielding, so roughly 33.7k combined in a single global. If we take what we learned from the healing contingency video, combining it with other abilities and the same global, and use it with Spite Ward, with crit RNG, again outside of Battle Spirit, that's 20.8k healing from Spite Ward, 18.1k healing from contingency, and 11.3k in shielding, so 50.2k in total for yourself and 1 global, while also burst healing the people around you with contingency. You can see how strong this can be when weaving it all together. Add in aggressive dodge rolls and you are just ridiculous to try to take down when playing Slippery. You'll be surprised how many players you end up being able to outmuscle toe to toe by just rune blading into Spite Ward at 3 Crux. It dumps out oppressive damage while weaving in constant shields and heals, while also having the healing contingency hot ticking. Finally, our ultimate Sanctum of the Abyssal Sea, or Bubble Ulti. This applies a huge shield to you, absorbing 60% of all damage for 10 seconds up to the shield's strength, then bursts when it expires, dealing the absorbed damage to surrounding enemies over 10 seconds as magic damage, again boosted by Ward Maiden. This is used defensively and offensively. I personally use it offensively much more than defensively. You can straight up run down an entire team at times, you can use it to dive in the backline, stay on the target to finish them while being focused by others, jump dead center of a team fight. There's lots of ways to use this. If you get in trouble, you can also pop this defensively, and with all the other elements of the kit, when played correctly, you're going to live through most things, and as you carry the BG, you can reach down and pat all the misinformed people on the head who are telling you Oakensole is trash as they adorably tug on your shirt, asking you if you have games on your phone. And that's it, gamers, nice and quick. I'll leave you with a bit of gameplay so you can see it in action, and if you want to see some live gameplay, I'll be playtesting this on stream for a bit, while also playtesting extending this out to 2 bars for overland PvP. If you try it out, I hope you enjoy it, and if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll see if I can help you out. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.